When life begins to feel like it is turning upside down, most people assume something has gone wrong. Jobs feel unstable, friendships begin to shift, routines suddenly no longer work the way they used to. What often feels like disruption is, in truth, the first sign of realignment. When the universe or your own inner self is moving you closer to a higher state of being. The process rarely begins with calm, predictable events. Instead, it starts with subtle nudges, cracks in the familiar, and changes that pull you out of your comfort zone. These disruptions may feel uncomfortable, but they are signals that something greater is preparing to come into your reality. Alignment is rarely gentle because it demands that old patterns, beliefs, and attachments fall away to make room for the new. Think about how we often cling to what feels safe. A job that no longer challenges us, a relationship that doesn't inspire us, a routine that keeps us small but feels comfortable. These situations provide stability, but they can also hold us back from stepping into who we are truly meant to become. Alignment begins by shaking these foundations. Suddenly, the job feels suffocating, the relationship grows distant, or the routine feels meaningless. What once provided comfort now feels like confinement. This is disruption, yes, but it is not random chaos. It is your higher self creating the necessary cracks so that the light of new possibilities can shine through. It is important to recognize that disruption is not punishment. Many people mistake difficulties as signs that they are failing or being pushed backward, when in reality, they're being pushed forward. The signs of alignment are often wrapped in discomfort because growth is never found in ease. Just as a seed must break through the soil and darkness before reaching the sunlight, so too must you break through the layers of old conditioning before stepping into alignment. The soil resists, the growth is slow, but eventually the sprout finds its way to the light. Disruptions work in the same way. They push you out of the soil of old comfort so you can grow into something much larger. Another way to see this is through patterns. When the same challenges show up repeatedly in your life, they're not coincidences. They are signals that the universe is trying to redirect you. For example, you might notice that every time you try to ignore your passion, circumstances arise that force you to confront your dissatisfaction. You may lose opportunities, encounter constant friction, or feel drained in ways you can't explain. These repeated disruptions are alignment calling you back to yourself. The more you resist, the louder the disruptions become. At first, it might feel like small irritations. Eventually, it grows into bigger obstacles. The purpose is to grab your attention so you stop living on autopilot and begin listening to what your soul is actually asking for. These moments are not easy. They come with confusion, fear, and a strong desire to return to the old version of life where things felt stable. Yet that stability was only an illusion. True alignment does not come from clinging to what is familiar. It comes from stepping into what is right, even if it feels uncertain. Disruptions break away the false layers so the truth can reveal itself. When a chapter of life closes suddenly, when relationships end unexpectedly, or when circumstances no longer feel bearable, it is a sign that life is preparing you for a chapter that better reflects your true self. Pay attention to the emotions that arise during disruptions. Restlessness, dissatisfaction, and frustration are often the emotional language of alignment. They're telling you that you have outgrown your current state. Just like a snake must shed its skin to continue growing, you too must shed environments, mindsets, and patterns that no longer serve you. The shedding process is never comfortable, but it is necessary. If you misinterpret these signals as failure or misfortune, you risk missing the opportunity hidden inside them. But if you see them as signs of alignment, you begin to recognize the beauty in the chaos. Even synchronicities often accompany these disruptions. You might see repeating numbers, hear the same message from different people, or encounter unexpected opportunities after something breaks apart. These are not coincidences, but confirmations that the disruption you are experiencing is aligned with a larger plan. Life first removes what no longer serves you, and then begins to introduce what will. The process requires trust, because the new path may not reveal itself immediately. There's often a gap between the ending of one chapter and the beginning of the next. And it is within this gap that fear tries to convince you that nothing better is coming. Yet the disruption itself is the evidence that something better is on its way. The key is to observe disruptions not with resistance, but with curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" begin to ask, "What is this teaching me? What is this making space for?" That shift in perspective turns chaos into clarity. It allows you to move from victimhood to empowerment. When you begin to see disruption as the language of alignment, you stop fearing change and start embracing it. What feels like endings are actually beginnings. What feels like loss is actually liberation. Discomfort is one of the clearest indicators that transformation is taking place. Human nature is wired to seek safety and familiarity, yet growth is never born from the familiar. The very feeling of unease, whether it shows up as restlessness, anxiety, or dissatisfaction, is a signal that you're on the edge of expansion. Too often, discomfort is misinterpreted as failure or a sign to retreat. People believe that if something feels hard, they must be on the wrong path. In reality, the opposite is true. Discomfort is evidence that you are moving beyond what you have already mastered and stepping into new territory that will stretch you into a larger version of yourself. Consider how muscles grow. When you exercise, the strain placed on the muscle fibers causes tiny tears. Those tears are uncomfortable, sometimes even painful, but they are necessary for the muscle to rebuild itself stronger than before. Without resistance, there would be no growth. The same principle applies to your inner life. Discomfort is the tearing away of old limitations, old identities, and old ways of thinking. It feels like breaking apart, but what is truly happening is the rebuilding of a stronger, more expansive self. Think about times in your life when you felt forced into change. Perhaps you had to leave behind a job that no longer fulfilled you or end a relationship that had grown stagnant. During those moments, the discomfort may have felt unbearable. Yet in hindsight, those were often the turning points that led to greater opportunities, deeper self-awareness, and stronger alignment with your purpose. Discomfort is rarely pleasant in the moment, but it is often the very doorway to the life you secretly long for. It is the bridge between the old and the new, and crossing it always comes with feelings of uncertainty. The fear of discomfort keeps many people trapped. They cling to routines, environments, and identities that are no longer aligned because they fear the unknown that comes with stepping away. But discomfort is already a sign that staying the same is not sustainable. When you begin to feel an internal tension, that is your inner self whispering that you have outgrown your current circumstances. It is not failure. It is not a sign that you are broken. It is a natural response to growth trying to take place. The longer you ignore that discomfort, the more it grows. It becomes louder, showing up as stress, exhaustion, and dissatisfaction. Eventually, it forces you to act. Many of the most successful and fulfilled people in the world will tell you that their greatest breakthroughs came from the moments of deepest discomfort. They were forced to reinvent themselves when life pushed them beyond their comfort zone. They learned that the unfamiliar is not something to fear, but something to embrace. The greatest danger is not in discomfort, but in comfort that turns into stagnation. Comfort zones may feel safe, but they are also cages. They limit your vision, your growth, and your potential. Discomfort rattles the bars of that cage, reminding you that freedom is on the other side. Even in everyday life, the principle holds true. Learning a new skill requires you to be a beginner, fumbling through mistakes and awkwardness. Having difficult conversations requires vulnerability, which feels uncomfortable but ultimately deepens connection. Pursuing a dream requires risk, uncertainty, and the possibility of failure, yet without stepping into that discomfort, the dream remains unrealized. Discomfort is the price of admission to the life you want. Every leap, every transformation, every quantum jump requires you to pass through it. Another important truth is that discomfort does not mean danger. Modern life has conditioned people to equate any negative feeling with something being wrong. Yet discomfort and danger are not the same. Danger threatens your survival, while discomfort challenges your limits. Recognizing the difference is key. When you feel uncomfortable, it does not mean you need to retreat. It means you need to breathe, ground yourself, and keep moving forward. The more you practice leaning into discomfort, the more resilient you become. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once triggered fear becomes an opportunity. Discomfort also sharpens awareness. It forces you to pay attention to what truly matters. When you are comfortable, it is easy to drift through life without questioning your choices. But discomfort pushes you to ask deeper questions. Why am I feeling this way? What am I holding on to that no longer serves me? What is trying to emerge from within me? These questions open the doorway to self-discovery. They reveal the areas where growth is not only possible, but necessary. Without discomfort, many of these insights would remain hidden beneath the layers of routine. The beauty of discomfort lies in its impermanence. It does not last forever. It is the stretching phase before a new alignment locks into place. Just like the growing pains of adolescence eventually give way to a stronger body, the growing pains of personal transformation eventually give way to a stronger identity. When you learn to see discomfort as temporary and purposeful, you stop running from it. You begin to walk with it, knowing it is guiding you toward the version of yourself you are meant to become. Transformation is often imagined as a sudden leap, a dramatic shift that changes everything overnight. While it may appear this way from the outside, the truth is that quantum leaps are built on small, consistent shifts that compound over time. It is not the one grand action that propels you into a new reality, but rather the accumulation of seemingly minor decisions, adjustments, and changes that eventually create a tipping point. These small shifts are often so subtle that they can be overlooked, yet they hold the power to alter the entire trajectory of your life. Every choice you make carries energy. Choosing to wake up earlier, to replace one limiting thought with an empowering one, to have a single courageous conversation, or to say no to something that drains you may not feel monumental in the moment. Yet each of these actions creates a ripple. Over time, those ripples converge into waves that carry you forward. The leap that others see as sudden is actually the visible result of countless small shifts made in private, when no one was watching. This is the essence of a quantum jump. It is the compounding of small actions that finally push you across an invisible threshold into a new reality. The human mind often underestimates the power of small shifts because it has been conditioned to look for big results quickly. If the change is not dramatic, it is dismissed as insignificant. But think about how nature works. Water, drop by drop, can carve through stone. Seasons change through gradual transitions that are almost imperceptible day by day. Yet over time, they transform the entire landscape. Small shifts work the same way in personal transformation. A slight adjustment in your thoughts, a daily practice of gratitude, or a new habit of self-discipline begins to shape who you are becoming. One day you wake up and realize that what once felt impossible is now your new normal. Not because of a sudden miracle, but because of the quiet consistency of small shifts. These shifts also affect perception. The way you choose to frame your experiences determines how you navigate them. For instance, deciding to see a challenge as a lesson instead of a punishment is a small mental shift. Yet it completely alters your response and opens the door to growth. Choosing to replace one thought of self-doubt with one thought of self-trust may not feel revolutionary, but over time, it rewires your belief system. Eventually, the internal landscape changes so much that external circumstances must also change to match it. This is how inner shifts lead to external leaps. Small shifts also reduce resistance. The idea of massive change can be overwhelming, creating fear that paralyzes action. But when you focus on just one small step at a time, the process becomes manageable. Instead of overhauling your entire life in one day, you make incremental changes that gradually move you in the right direction. Each small success builds momentum, and momentum creates confidence. This confidence fuels bigger actions, and before long, the leap occurs naturally. The leap feels quantum because it happens all at once, but in truth, It is the natural culmination of the steps you took consistently. The compounding effect of small shifts becomes especially powerful when combined with awareness. Paying attention to the little choices you make daily, what you consume, what you think, how you speak to yourself, how you spend your time, creates a consciousness that accelerates transformation. None of these choices seem monumental on their own, but together they create an energetic alignment that draws new opportunities, relationships, and experiences into your life. The shift is subtle until suddenly it is undeniable. The invisible groundwork you laid through small actions reveals itself in visible results. Stories of transformation often highlight the leap, but rarely do they acknowledge the small shifts behind it. An artist may be discovered overnight, but that overnight was built on years of daily practice. A business may seem to suddenly succeed, but it is the result of countless small decisions, experiments, and failures that built the foundation. A person may appear to undergo a rapid personal transformation, but behind that leap are the small daily shifts in mindset, habits, and choices that quietly reshaped them. The leap is simply the moment when the accumulation of shifts becomes too great to ignore. The beauty of small shifts is that they're always accessible. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment or possess extraordinary resources to begin. Change starts with the decision to shift one thing today, no matter how small. Even choosing to pause and breathe instead of reacting in anger is a shift. Choosing to trust instead of doubt is a shift. Choosing to take one step forward instead of staying stuck is a shift. These micro decisions, repeated consistently, build the momentum that carries you toward your quantum jump. Quantum leaps are not reserved for rare moments of luck or extraordinary people. They are the natural result of energy aligning with intention through consistent shifts. What feels like a sudden breakthrough is really the tipping point where all the small actions converge. The leap is closer than it seems because you're already creating it every time you choose growth over stagnation, courage over fear, alignment over resistance. Each small shift is a step on the bridge, and though the bridge may feel endless, at some point the last step transforms into a leap that changes everything.